Very good. Thank you. All right. This is a special city council meeting, 6 p.m. Tuesday, October 18th. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Nicole, you want to do roll call just to verify quorum again?
Councilmember Pierce,
Here.
Councilmember Myers, here, Councilmember Popson,
Here.
Councilmember Streetman,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Anderson, here, Councilmember Goshen,
Here.
Councilmember Hahn, Mayor Pounds.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is citizens' comments to Councilmember Streetman's. We had trouble getting our agenda out yesterday. That's totally on me from a timing standpoint. So if there are folks that would like to speak, we'll take that now.
Randy and Mr. Santiago had signed up.
Okay. Randy, hang on one second. Let me close that door real quick. And Randy, pull that mic up, please, sir.
Short person, small.
Perfect. All right, go ahead. Is it on, Randy?
I don't think so.
It's not on.
Hang on. Hold on.
There you go.
Where's our technical?
No,
He's coming.
lights on, but
Randy, your
I just-
allotted annual time on the mic is not in.
I keep telling myself that too, Blair. So I'm not going to spend 3 minutes lecturing on what everybody knows our opinions already are. I just want to say, in terms of process and procedure, having sat there for 4 years and countless times before I was on council, we have process and procedure that I think works pretty well for governance. I was not in favor of workshops, right? I'm still not in favor of workshops, but I find it a bit ironic that workshops were for the purpose of allowing 9 council members full participation and full purview of everything that was to be put in front of council. Now we have a discussion to create a task force, which reduces the size of representation. It's not defined. It's nowhere in the city ordinances, but we're going to, whether it's the mayor or however, I know some mystery process, maybe it's names in a hat, we're going to pick people with perhaps differing views than the 9 of you that represent the all of us to have a task force. So by the rules of procedure, you can, sitting up here, make a recommendation to not move forward. I found it notable that this item said for discussion and consideration. Generally, when there's not an intent to vote, that word consideration is not on that agenda. So there was a clear intent to have a vote on this. My personal belief is there was clear knowledge of at least 5 of you that you would vote to move this forward. I find that reprehensible. As a past council member and as somebody who elected, I voted for most of you, I find that such a usurpation of process and authority, and putting this out there the day before sends a message to this community. Hey, guess what? We did first reading. We had the obligatory meeting for all of your comments. And by the way, we're not even going to give council time to think about this. We're going to vote on a task force. So seriously, somebody, please, somebody that understands process sitting up there, make a motion to end this nonsense tonight and not move forward with a task force that is not by any means supported by anyone I've spoken to in this community. Thank you.
Mr. Santiago
Tony.
is the only other person that asked to speak ahead of the meeting.
keep rocking.
Well, now is the time for citizens' comments.
Yeah, that's my comment.
I didn't even get a chance to push the timer.
Cut me off now. Okay. I'm not going to break this point, but it's wrong. You know it's wrong. This has been discussed since August. You've had time to look at legal opinions. I brought you a legal opinion. One of the top attorneys in Charleston, who's a member of the city council, who's rewriting their zoning laws right now. And you need more legal advice. I don't think so. And I don't think a smaller group behind closed doors is the right answer. Everybody here wants you to make this decision as a group. I trust you. Whatever decision you make, that's it. It's done. but you got to step up, and it can't be any backdoor trading. I know, Blair, you want home rule. I get it. I'm for home rule. It's great. But this isn't home rule time. It's passing these ordinances and not using a task force to get into a negotiation stage. So this is the only answer we want from it. Put this through the normal process. Do not subvert it, what you did with ATAX with that task force. Don't go that route. Listen to us finally. Would you, for God's sakes, just listen to us and stop thinking you're smarter than us. You're not. Okay? You're smart people, but so are we. This is not a community of average people. All right? We are top performers in what we've done in our lives in the past and what we will continue to do. Trust us to trust you and do the right thing.
Mayor,
Yes.
Ms. Camps would like to speak again.
Okay. Elizabeth.
Hello again. You're here tonight to discuss the appointment of a task force to serve as liaison between the resort and council with regard to the pending ordinances under consideration. This issue already has a task force in our planning commission, and that is where Wild Dunes LLC can make comments and present whatever current or future development requests it has to planning and to the community at large. Those requests will then be considered by planning, and they, not a task force, will make a recommendation to council. I believe that's what Blair was speaking about earlier. That is the statutory process. I believe sunshine laws would also support this process, as it is open and transparent and designed to be that way. I reviewed our code of ordinances. Section 5-4-11 details the process for amending our zoning ordinance. There's no provision for the appointment of a special task force because that role is a role of our planning committee. When asked at first reading why the location of the public hearing couldn't be moved to City Hall, Desiree was very clear that this entire process is driven by strict statutes and requirements. We should not deviate from the procedural process outlined in our code. Our new code of conduct established guidelines and standards that, among other items, state that each of you will comply with the laws of the United States, state of South Carolina, and the city of Isle of Palms in the performance of your public duties. Following state and local laws with regard to zoning amendments does not include the creation of a task force. For these reasons, I do not believe you should move forward with the creation of a task force.
Other comments? Brian?
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the rapid calling of this particular meeting without much notice to the public. It's usually done in the case of an emergency. I don't know what the emergent condition is. When I was on council, we did have emergency council meetings, and they were emergent issues that had to be addressed. This emergent issue has been addressed, was addressed by the first readings. It's been addressed tonight in public comments. It's going to be addressed in 2 weeks by continuing public comments. So the real question is, why do you want a task force as opposed to letting the planning commission do their job? I mean, if you want it killed, let the planning commission kill it. It has done that in the past numerous times, historically. So that's the way it's done. Again, I don't understand what the emergent condition is for this meeting. And really, I really would like to see somebody make a motion to end the meeting, because I see no value in this at all. And it really makes me question what the heck is going on. Thank you.
I don't know if anyone's left upstairs. Do you have any idea?
The room was empty upstairs.
Okay.
I'm Karen Smith. I've lived at 46 Intercoastal Court for the last 20, about approximate years. I'm a veteran. I'm a former federal officer and a former CEO of several corporations. That's why I live on the water. I did well. But I've seen this move before. I've seen it in government, I've seen it in the military, and I've seen it in corporations. When you don't want to make a decision or something that's unpopular, you create a committee or you hire consultants to kick the can down the road. It's always non-productive, a waste of time, and it shows a lack of leadership and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I am still Tom Schmidt. I wish I had talked before an enforcement officer. He took all my lines. Um, Yeah, briefly, I've got a little business history too. I worked for 18 years, 18 and a half years for Anheuser-Busch and was well up in the organization and had the P&L for a multi-million dollar business unit for them. And then they fired me for pecking on the chest of one of the policy committee guys. But it wasn't for making bad decisions. What they paid me for all that time, and they paid me quite a bit and sent me out with a lot of stock options and some other nice things, and that's why I live on the beach. That and having started a company of my own with this love here, that we ran it for 22 years, then sold it to a company 5 times our size. The point of all that is that I've known a lot of good people and met a lot of good decision makers. And as I've read kind of your bios, as you were all looking to get elected and this, that, and the other, and we first moved to Isle of Palms in '97. So I've lived here through a few councils and can remember when Mrs. Poor was the mayor back then and all that stuff. And you know, as time's going on, the council has moved up in intellect and experience and everything. And I look around this room and I'm saying, you know, this don't make any sense to want to have a task force when each and every one of you here is this decision about these decisions about these ordinances aren't that tough. It's my constituents want this, a developer wants this. What should I do? Okay. And I'm kind of going to let it at that. I don't think you need a task force. I think you guys got what it takes to do it. One of the things I learned at Anheuser-Busch, Anheuser-Busch had a great mentor system. And the guy kept telling me as I was learning how to make decisions, and I'd come and try to bounce stuff off him, and he'd say, Tom, I told you before, a good idea never gets better with age.
Patsy, just be sure you pull the mic down to you, please.
Is this good enough or no? Okay. I'm Patsy Hyman, 7 Barnacle Road, and I'm known for speaking up online a lot, and now tonight I'm speaking up here. The phrase that nobody has used before tonight is no brainer. I think a lot of us listening to you all having these deliberations about this think it's a no brainer to pass these ordinances. If you pass them and then you need to negotiate, you can negotiate from a position of strength. It doesn't mean that the developers can't come forward and ask for a variance. They can. And the Planning Commission and you can decide at that point if you want to go ahead with what they want. But if you don't pass the ordinances, and there's to be any negotiation by you, by the planning commission, or by this task force that I think is ridiculous, then you have nothing to negotiate with. You got nothing. So please recognize that those of us on the street think that this issue is a no-brainer. Use your brains, pass the ordinances. You don't need a task force.
Others? Desiree, you said nobody's left upstairs.
That's correct.
Other comments? Brenda?
Brenda again, I don't think this is ever done, but I'd like to ask a question. Who recommended a task force and why? What are the thoughts on what would be a positive a task force? Obviously, none of us want it, and we think you're capable without it, but somebody stuck it on at the last minute, where you've had months to do that, and I don't know any discussion about it. Y'all gonna discuss it after this, or will y'all tell us what y'all think? Okay, thank you.
Wow. Brenda, you brought the house down. Other comments? We will. Anyone else? Don't want to cut it off if there's conversation to be had.
I'd like to make the motion that everyone's asked for, and that is to not go forward with this discussion consideration of a task force. I can tell you, I certainly didn't know about it until last night. And I don't see any reason why we would do it. I think everybody out there knows that I'm all for transparency and having everything out in front of the public. So
I'll
that a
second
motion?
that. Yeah,
Motion and second.
I second it.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I think we just need to kill this thing right now. It's we've heard from the public. They don't want it. I don't want it. I think it's a really bad idea. I think we just need to stick with the process. And this needs to go to the planning commission. We have a really good totally volunteer planning commission, do very good work, and let the process work. We get their recommendations and go to second reading. But we need to kill this tonight.
Rusty?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would reinforce that as well. We do have a process in place. We do know it's going to the planning commission. They'll get back to us with any recommendations or not. They may just send it back to us without any recommendation, which is basically tacit approval, as I understand it, for what the council's already done. I mean, we have passed the first reading of the ordinances. We did that. And it seems to me that the logical next step would be to follow that process, as a couple of people have already mentioned prior. So favor that. I don't have anything
Okay.
else. It's been said.
Just real quick. Sorry.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
Thank you. Procedurally, I don't know how we do this, but I would like to talk to our lawyer about how we.
Hang on,
You know what we're talking about.
folks.
This whole idea of a task force has been made up by somebody. That's not what this is about. If you'll let me speak, maybe you'll hear something that you can understand. We have been asked by Wild Dunes to receive information. How we do that is very important for our legal position with all of this. And all I want to do is talk to our lawyer about how information can be received from Wild Dunes and whether it should be in different formats. And I'm not willing to vote on any of this until that time. So I would like to ask that we have that opportunity just to get legal counsel before we make any vote on anything.
Yeah, and Blair, to that question, so we have George Bullwinkle, who some may know the city is engaged from Nixon Pruitt to represent the city on this particular issue. Will be here a week from tonight.
Okay.
at our council meeting to that exact question. So just real quick, just a reminder, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Douglas covered the process, kind of the next few steps, but just quick reminder, and then we'll take action. So first reading was last week. We've got the public hearing tonight. We've got one more public hearing scheduled for November 1st at the Rec Center at 5 p.m. So prior to the reading and ratification, our code requires the Planning Commission to review and recommend proposed zoning amendments. Planning Commission has 30 days, to somebody's question about time frame. They have 30 days to come back to council from our first reading. So there is a Planning Commission scheduled for November 9th, I believe it is, to take this matter up. That'll come back to council. So,
Mr. Mayor, we got a motion on the floor.
and we're having discussion. So now
Well,
we
that's the process, but would like to get back to the pertinent motion.
understand. We're just giving a little bit of the
Right.
process.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Nicole,
Would you please read the motion?
It was a negative motion. Ms. Myers, do you mind restating your motion, your intent for the motion?
The motion was to not move forward with.
You need to do it in a positive way.
could do a motion to adjourn, actually.
Motion, yeah.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Meeting.
Say it again, Katie.
I'm sorry, a motion to adjourn.
I just made.
Second.
There was a second. Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Off record at 6:23.